Hey, welcome back. We're here at the studio. Let's see, what is this one? We're on block number 4 of our Hummingbird block of the month, or our Hummingbird quilt kit. And this particular month, you can see that the Hummingbird is going to overlap the block. So once I get these pieces out, I'm going to put them back in the bag and we'll stow those aside until it's ready to assemble the blocks. So I have my background block here. I've already given it a little bit of a quick press. I've taken it out of my storage box that has all of my pieces safely tucked away inside. I pulled out my paper pattern, and with the dry iron you can see that I'm going to give this a quick press just to get out any of those deep creases, so that when I get around to laying my pieces in place, I don't have them shifting off because of the fold in the paper. I don't want the creases to distort my block. So as always, I'm going to lay my fabric on here and make sure that I've cut it the right size for the pattern. And then I can go ahead and pull my pieces out. Once I get my Hummingbird components set aside, then I can put those back in the bag. I'm going to keep out my paper, add that to the collection here, so I can look, if I need to, what block is what. I can't tell if that's just a piece of paper or the eye for the Hummingbird. But anyway, I'm going to keep my bag right there and quickly lay out some of these components. I know that's the Hummingbird. Hummingbird. That goes to the flower. Hummingbird. And let me see. I think that is it for the Hummingbird components. So I'm going to go ahead and safely tuck these back into the bag, so I'll have those when I need them, and I can bring the camera in a little bit closer and show you just how quick this block goes together. I have some of the pieces approximately where they're going to go, so I'm going to go ahead and start placing some of those. I know that this part of the stem here is going to go down back behind the hibiscus, so I'm going to get that in first. You can always tell when a component goes from a solid line to a dotted line, that means that it is going to be covered with another piece. And all of these pieces are laser cut, so you have super crisp edges that will resist fraying when they go into the washer or dryer. All I have to do is bend over the edge of the fabric and get piece of that edge. It's funny how some of these pieces can be so hard to figure out which way they go. Okay. Somebody's looking for me. But I will continue on. Normally I don't have to turn the volume of my phone off because nobody calls. Okay, I'm going to ease my pattern back into position. If it starts to shift, all of these pieces are repositionable. So if I put them in the wrong place, I can go ahead and lift them back up and get them moved into the correct place without a big trauma. They won't be permanently fused down until we hit it with moisture and with heat. Steam-A-Seam 2 requires both components to be activating the adhesive. That's why they call it Steam-A-Seam. And we're going in real time here. As you can see just how fast these blocks go together. I've said many times before, and I'll say it again, this is something that you could do with the whole family. You could have the kids or grandkids helping. If they're too young to peel the paper off and get them in place, you could just let them put the pieces in position with the paper backing on it, and then you could come back and do the remove the paper backing. But if they've got very agile little fingers, perhaps they could even help with getting the paper backing off and getting them into position. I don't think I would let super young kids work with the hot iron, so that's something you could do on your own depending on their age. But you can see just how easily all of these pieces come off. As I said, I've reserved all of the pieces for the hummingbird until we get the blocks put together. If these were off a little bit of a fraction of an inch, it's not going to make one bit of difference to the finished product. And I think this is the last piece I have until I get the blocks put together. So I see I have one more piece to put in my bag of the hummingbird's feather plume. I can get that put aside into my box. And you can see also that the pieces will stay in place until I get them steamed down, which I could do now. But this is nice because you could go ahead and put this up on the design wall, make sure everything's just as you want it, and then when you're ready, you could go ahead and get the steaming done. And what I do to steam these, because I don't keep water in my iron, I just use a little spritz bottle, and I'll just moisten the top of that with the spritz bottle, cover it with a Teflon pressing sheet, and then I can go ahead and put my iron in place and just let that sit there long enough for the heat to penetrate through the Teflon pressing sheet, through all of the pieces of the applique, to fuse that webbing all the way to the background, keeping in mind that some of the pieces, like this hibiscus, have the backing, the flower, the center two pieces of the flower, and the stamen. So you have 4 or 5 layers that heat needs to transfer through. The Teflon pressing sheet will keep your background block clean. It keeps the edges of your applique safe so that they don't get damaged with the iron shifting side to side. Prevents any glue from getting on the sole plate of the iron. Prevents the heat of the iron from scorching your background fabric in case you've let it sit a little bit too long. And I'm really letting it go through all the layers of that hibiscus. Once I completely fuse this from the front, what I would do is remove the Teflon pressing sheet and flip my block over, and then I would go ahead and refuse again after spritzing it from the back to make sure that we've really fused the edges, all of the components of these blocks. We at Urban Elementz don't top stitch our laser cut and pre-fused applique, but we do quilt over it when it is a quilt top. If it's something like an apron or goes on a canvas bag or a backpack, those items obviously we don't quilt over, and we also don't top stitch. If this is fused down properly from the beginning, it doesn't require stitching. We have fused these applique shapes on metal, glass, canvas, burlap, all types of different surfaces. If you can't use an iron to fuse down the component, you can always use a blow dryer and then hold the pieces in shape with a tea towel or something. Now I'm going to go ahead and re-moisten this from the back and fuse it again from the back, and just let it take its time. You can see the steam coming off, which is what will happen when the iron hits it, and that helps activate that fusible adhesive that Steam & Seam uses to bond their product permanently. After this month, I believe we have one more block to do for the main body of the quilt. Then we'll be getting into putting the blocks together, and at that point we can add back some of the applique that we've been holding aside. Once the blocks are all connected, we can add all of the overlapping block applique, and then we can move on to getting the inner border and the outer border put on. And it's at that point that blocks 6 and 7 will be added on to the quilt, because those components actually go in the border of the quilt. Even after misting the block, you can see now that the block is completely dry. And just like that, we have our finished block. The hummingbird will come back in over here once we have that assembled, and we could go ahead and set this block aside. We have another block finished, and you can see just how quick it was to get that done. So just that fast, we have block number 4 all ready to go to be assembled in the rest of the quilt when we get the blocks finished. The hummingbird that will overlap this block will be assembled after the blocks are put together. And so now we can put this one aside, and next month we'll be doing block number 5. So I hope you'll join us back. That's probably going to be another quick video because it's a similar size to this one. I would imagine that the piece count is going to be very similar to this one, and then after that we can get all of the blocks put together, and we're moving on to putting on some of these overlapping applique and then getting the borders on. So thanks for stopping in for this quick one, and we look forward to seeing you again next time, where we're going to do some more laser cut and prefused applique on our Hummingbird Garden quilt. See you next time. Just one.